Tyler.
Hey, Pierre. How we
What's
be doing?
going on? Welcome to the New Score podcast. My name is Pat. This is my co-host, TYG, Tyler Pratt.
Flower,
Tyler, how we
power.
doing today, baby?
Doing good. Doing good. Can't complain. Coming off of a good day yesterday. Solid way to start the week. Of course, we got some flower power as your drink of the night, and we got some guests, so we're ready to roll. Ready to roll.
Yes, just a reminder, if you're on YouTube right now, go ahead and like and subscribe. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Give us a follow on Instagram at new_score_podcast. Give us a follow on Facebook. We appreciate all the support. Love y'all. Thanks for listening. And yeah, like Tyler said, we got our week 10 preview going on tonight. And in addition to that, questions with a fan. We got multiple guests on. We got a Chicago Bears fan, Mr. Todd Albrecht, rejoining the pod. Talk about the Bears and their big win last night. Talk about where they're at right now. And we also have a Buffalo Bills fan joining us tonight. So we are excited. We are excited to
Mafia.
get into that right
Mafia.
before we get to this week 10 preview. So without further ado, questions with a fan. Welcome to Questions with a Fan. Today we got our Chicago Bears insider, Mr. Todd Albrecht. Second time on the pod. Welcome back, Todd.
Thanks for having me.
Let's do it. Let's dive into it, Todd. So we pulled off a win over Carolina last night, 16-13. Some things I want to ask you about in addition to going over that game. I want to start us off with talking about that Montez Sweat trade. A couple episodes ago, Tyler and I talked about all the trades that happened at the deadline. Both of us saw the 49ers trading for Chase Young for a third with his expiring contract as a good investment because of where they were at as a team right now, moving forward, helping them for a playoff push. And we didn't feel that the Bears should have gave up a second for that expiring contract with where they were at as a team. I want to know what you think about him, what you think about that trade. Obviously, you needed some players on that defense. You needed some players. You're not paying anybody, so what damages it giving him that contract? The only issue I had, Todd, was giving up that second round pick because I feel like that's a very valuable asset, and you can always, splurge in free agency. If you need that edge in free agency and you put enough money in front of them, then you can get the guy that you want. So that's where I was coming from at that, just giving up that second round pick. But what are your thoughts on that trade and how it's paid off so far?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to argue your point that you can throw money in front of somebody, you can't guarantee that they're going to come to your team. But if you establish a trade and you have the guy on there and you work out a contract afterwards, which is what they did, even with the expiring contract, they had the franchise tag, but they desperately needed help on the defensive line, right? And it's like you got to say as a GM, you're looking at who's coming, who's going to be a free agent. Can we lure him here? Who's in the draft and so on. And I think that, I think Ryan Poles felt like this was his best play. And I can't really argue that because, I mean, if you look at what Montez has to offer, I mean, you look at sack numbers, that's one thing. But the guy's a 3-down player. I mean, he is solid, beyond solid in the run, right? So, and the other thing is he's been proven to be super, super durable. And, the old saying that the best ability is availability, right? The guy's he's been there. So I don't hate it. And you have money to spend. And, I guess when you have the cap space that they have, like I was talking to my son, Tyler, and he agrees with me, like the whole, like, contract issues and stuff that they have, why can't you just like front load some of this stuff when you have so much cap space? And in 2 years, it's going to look like a great deal, right? The market's going to adjust and it's going to look like a great deal. So
Yeah.
I honestly, I like it. I think that you had to make moves because they were just going to get beat up um, with no pass rush or, without strengthening the run defense. So, I'm looking at it positively.
To your point, that defense, the last couple weeks particularly, has looked really good. We talked about last episode that game in New Orleans where offense just kept turning the ball over and setting the Saints up, and time again, that Bears defense was standing tall for them. So I thought that was a huge game for them last week, and it showed again. I mean, the Carolina Panthers are what they are, but it's an NFL offense out there, and the defense looks good right now. They gave up that punt return, but other than that, they didn't really allow any damage. There wasn't any chunk plays or anything for Carolina. Um, Speaking about the defense, who are some guys that you're feeling better about now since the last time we spoke on that defensive side?
Um, I think the rookie corner, Tyreek Stevenson, he's really, really doing good. I feel like that's one of the things that they really feel strong about is that, the rookie corners are going to step up. But um, last year's second round pick, Kyler Gordon, was absolutely everywhere last night. I mean, and again, I get it. It's the Panthers or whatever, right? But he was just, he was there. He allowed 16 total passing yards, literally.
That's
So
great.
he's starting to really come into his own. I think Kyler Gordon's probably going to be one of the foundation players that they can look forward to having and keeping.
Yeah.
That nickel position on defense, I think, gets overlooked a lot.
Oh, for
The
sure.
value of that position because it's your ability to defend the pass, but you're also that corner that's getting involved in the run game. And like you said, to have a guy that's all over the field, that's what you want. I know the Rams. When Raheem Morris took over as DC, he wanted Jalen Ramsey more involved in the game, so he put him in that spot. So Jalen was getting involved in the run game, and it just made him that much of a better player because he was
Mm-hmm.
making that much more of an impact instead of being one on one on the edge and just having to lock down, worry about one guy. Tyler, anything you want to add about that defense or that sweat trade?
I actually had a question for Todd while we're on the cornerbacks. So, Jalen Johnson, right? Request a trade. It didn't happen. He's played great so far this year. I want to say he's one of the top ranked corners, like pro Football Focus, and as
Top
far as like,
five.
yeah, as far as quarterback grade against, he's top three. So I just want to say, like, from a fan perspective, you have someone who's played so well for your team, and then they request a trade, and then they end up staying put. Kind of how do you feel, I guess, towards that player moving forward?
Yeah. So have we seen the Roquan Smith comments where he's basically just a couple of days ago, he said that, he was sour at first about the trade, but he's glad he's not wasting his career away, not contending for a title, So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, that sucks. But so Jalen is a guy I'd like to see extended. And that was kind of my point with, you know, throwing some front money up there and making these deals while you have the cap space, because as the deals dwindle down and the cap goes up for all the teams, they look like deals. So, yeah, as a fan, I absolutely would love to see Jalen Johnson re-signed. I mean, there's rumblings that he wants crazy money. Well, what's crazy money if you're ranked, in the top three or whatever, too? So,
Right.
um, the knock on him is he has been banged up in the past. He started this season off an injury too. So again, the availability thing. Are they weighing that? I don't know, but I like Jalen. I like what he offers. He does a little interview show, and he's
Yeah.
actually pretty entertaining on that too. But yeah, as a fan, I'd love to see him locked up. I think you got to build your
Perfect.
foundation.
Yeah. So no love lost.
No.
Yeah. I mean, and you talking about Stevenson, the rookie, and then we talked about Gordon and the way Jalen Johnson. I mean, that's a really underrated defense, to be honest. When we
Mhm.
keep talking about it, because we're talking about the secondary now,
Mhm.
and I know you talked about Jaquan Brisker last time you were on, how much you like him, and I've liked him a lot ever since he was at Penn State.
Yeah.
I know when he played Ohio State, that guy was all over the field. So I know they got some capability. Eddie Jackson is getting up there, but that's the secondary, and then you add Sweat to that D line with some young D tackles,
Mm-hmm.
linebackers is who they spent that money on this past offseason with Edwards and Edmonds. So, I mean, that defense, if you get some production from that offense, you can really have something going forward. And bringing up that offense now as we move on, it's trending in the direction that Justin Fields is going to be back next week after this little mini bye. Um, I want to get your thoughts on Agent Bajent and how he's looked these last few weeks. How you feel about Fields coming back, what you expect to see, what you want to see, and I know I spoke last episode about Badgett and how he's looked and how I just love like that moxie, like how that that confidence when he goes out on the field. It's just something that I really like to see in a young quarterback who, he's got the balls to take those shots downfield and make those throws, and we're not just babying them. What are your thoughts on that, though, Justin? The pending return.
Yeah. So I guess the thing that I said to you about Bajent is it's like if you don't believe you belong, then you don't belong, and he has that I belong attitude. And what I really liked about him was, it seems like everything between him and Justin, they're like completely opposite. Like I wish you could kind of mix them up and make one complete package because it's like, Tyson's you get that leadership feel out of him. And it's like, Justin's a super quiet leader. He's never been that super vocal guy. And, you never felt like he was the general. He was just kind of leading by example quietly and so on. But, Tyson did a good job. I feel like last night was one of those where it's like, man, I wish Justin was out there because I think that there were some spots where the ball could have been pushed. I think they would have been completions. I think that there were spots where, they could have extended the field a little bit more. Justin has got possibly 7 games left in his Bears career or more, who knows. But in 7 games, he's really going to have to show the growth. He's going to have to, more importantly, I think he's going to have to show the consistency because we've seen great games out of him, right? I mean, against Washington, it was like he was a killer. I mean, that was a freaking great game. And we've seen stinkers out of him too. So the knock on him's always been just like the consistency in the NFL. He hasn't been able to find it. So in these 7 games, that's what you got to look for. I like what Getsy's doing. I think that there was some creativity last night. I think that, the play calling's there. People beat him up. I don't think it's that bad. I think that there's room for Justin to be successful. He just has to really do it. I don't know. I mean, as I told you before, the best case scenario to build the team is that Justin balls out and they can use those picks elsewhere or trade back or whatever.
Yeah,
For sure. I want to move on to talking more about the game last night and what you thought. But Tyler, do you got anything on that? Anything you want to add?
yeah. It just goes back to something we've talked in prior episodes, especially relating to what Dan Orlovsky said about quarterbacks outside the top 15. It just comes down to consistency. Can you limit turnovers and stay consistent? And that's just what everyone's hoping for as a Bears fan. That Justin Fields can do is just stay consistent. So
Yeah.
if he can do that, he's going to take the Bears to another level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last night, I mean, they win 16-13. I'm going to dive into Carolina and what I think about them. Is there anything else, though, from last night's game that you were impressed with? I know we talked about the defense. I know Foreman looked good, but anything you want to add about last night's game?
Like I texted you earlier. I mean, if you allow any NFL team only 6 points, I mean that's I don't care. It's an NFL team. That's an achievement. So, they scored 6 on offense. So I think that was a win by the Bears defense. No, I mean center's a definite position of need. I know that. They just it's like, man, they can't get it together. It's like when the defense performs, the offense doesn't. When the offense puts points up, the defense allows 35 or something. So, but no.
Yeah, I've been there. Um, I want to talk about Carolina a little bit with you guys before we get you off, Todd, because I know you had said something about Bryce Young, and we have different opinions on that. So I want to talk about that. Now that you saw a full game of the Carolina Panthers, so you got a good look at them. I just want to bring up the fact that something I've talked about previously, Miles Sanders, who they paid 25 million to this past offseason. I want to give you guys a stat right quick. He's carried the ball 10 times over the last 3 games for a total of 34 yards, and he has 23 fewer carries than Chuba Hubbard, a guy that's earning less than a million on the third year of his rookie deal. And I just thought that signing when it happened in the offseason was just like, all right, we have this money and we have to use it on something, so we're going to pay Miles Sanders. I never thought Miles Sanders was anything special in Philadelphia. I thought that was more of a product of that Eagles O line. We've seen multiple running backs, run the rock really well for the Eagles over these last few years, and it's a credit to that O line and that system. And I never thought that Miles Sanders was. I mean, credit to that guy for getting paid, but I didn't think he deserved that contract, and it's showing right now. I mean, he finished last night with negative. I know the Bears are really good at stopping the run, but he finished last night with -5 yards rushing on 2 carries. So that's really bad. And then they used a
Wow.
bunch of money on a 33-year-old receiver, possession receiver at this point in his career, Adam Thielen. And I just don't think that's you're drafting a rookie quarterback and you're just not setting him up with anything. They don't have much at all on that offense, and their offensive line is maybe the worst in the league. If not worse in the league, they're bottom 5 O line in the league. And I don't think Frank Reich. I thought he was a good OC in Philadelphia with a Doug Peterson offense. I thought like that was the peak of his coaching career, and since then he flailed out in Indy, gets fired midseason last year, and it's not looking good for him now in Carolina. So I still believe in Bryce Young. I don't understand all the slander that he's getting. We knew they were going to be a bad team, as I talked about in a prior episode. We knew they were going to be a bad team. They didn't have much to work with, and I'm not going to kill a guy for that. I think the kid's got a lot of potential. I mean, he didn't get drafted first overall for nothing. And I think he is a great leader, and he's got a really good competitive edge to him. Tyler, what are your thoughts on everything Carolina? Actually, Todd, why don't you go first? We'll get you out of here. Go. What are your thoughts on Carolina?
Well, I mean, I think what I said to you is that Bryce didn't look good, but they aren't helping him. I mean, what you're saying about the line is like, I mean, oh my God, they can't run the ball, they can't protect him. I don't see where the play calling's helping them out. They aren't trying to get the ball out quicker. It seems like a lot of their plays are taking time. I don't know what's going on, but they also traded away their biggest weapon though too to get him. And when you go first overall as a quarterback, there's probably not going to be a lot on that team that you can work with. And I think this is the perfect example of that. Carolina's offense is not conducive to a guy coming in and just taking off with it. But
Right.
I mean, I don't dislike him. I think that he's still going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. But right now, he's not looking good. But it's a product of the environment.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Todd, we appreciate you very much for joining us again. We look forward to having you on again, talking some Bears.
And that's
But hey,
just
have a great weekend.
hey, let's just admit it though. This is the game nobody asked for, but they got it anyhow. So thank you, Amazon.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's a
absolutely.
fact.
All
Good
right,
to see you,
We
guys.
love
Tom.
football.
All right, we'll see
Thanks,
you.
man.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
To Todd's point, Tyler, before I let you go, that when people complain about, like this primetime game sucked or whatever. I hate when people talk about that because at the end of the day, it's the greatest sport on earth,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna watch it regardless because when I see shit like that and I see people complaining, to me, I'm thinking about those 6, 7 months of the year where we don't have NFL football and
Hmm.
how much I miss it. And then those preseason games where you're like, fuck, I can't even watch it. It's not the real thing. Those are the times I'm thinking about that make me want to really get invested in that game because at the end of the day, it's still NFL football. But go ahead. What are your thoughts on Carolina or anything about the game last night?
Yeah, 100%. I just want to say, go ahead and text Todd for me. Let him know. I appreciate him. It was good to see him. I think that's the first time I've actually like seen Todd in a long time. It might have been. It might even been 10 plus years. It's been a really long time since I've seen him. So, um, send him a text for me. But to touch on that,
Yeah, we
those
love
games
Todd.
that are boring to you that you like have to you know power through just to get it, or the games that put you to sleep, throw a couple of units on the under, right? Get yourself invested. You'll feel a lot better about the game when you hit your bet because it goes under like it's anticipated to. Like last night, nobody thought that there was going to be points put up last night. I think CJ was looking through DraftKings. He saw there was a bet where it was like for the Bears to score 2 touchdowns. It was like plus 1,700 odds. So if you bet $10 on that, I think you would have won like 170 or something. It was crazy. And did they score 2 touchdowns last night?
They had a punt return.
Yeah,
They had
it's
a punt return and then 6 points besides that. And they missed
the
we didn't even talk about they missed the 59-yard field goal. And that was another thing we could have talked about with Frank Reich. It was that decision to try that 59-yard field goal in the end instead of,
Mhm.
maybe going for it or punting them, pinning them because I believe they still had 2 timeouts left at that point.
Yeah,
Pinning them and then getting a much closer field goal after that. So that was, a questionable decision too. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
Carolina stinks, and they don't
yeah,
even have their pick.
yeah. So that's tough. But to your guys' point, when you're talking about Bryce Young specifically, he's not surrounded on a good team. You can put a top tier quarterback on this team, and they're going to struggle to go 500. Like that's how bad overall. I mean, I don't want to say how bad overall. Their defense is solid. Don't get me wrong. They have a lot of nice pieces on the defensive end, but offensively, when your top weapon is an expiring receiver, and Adam Thielen, and then they go and give that money to your point to Miles Sanders, like you're not setting your quarterback up for success. I think we all anticipated this going in. We knew the Panthers were going to be a bad team, so I'm not surprised that that Bryce is struggling. But I think what's kind of um, bringing more light to it and making people talk about it even more is the success of CJ Stroud, and then the early success of
100%.
Anthony Richardson because he looked real good, and then Will Levis comes in the last couple games and makes the Titans offense look like a different offense from when Ryan Tannehill was under center. So it's like I think all of those factors make people feel like Bryce Young is a bust or isn't as good as everyone else, but you got to look at the situations and you got to look at the teams that these respective quarterbacks are on, and Bryce Young is on the worst one. It's not even close.
He's not set up for success, and people got to realize that every situation is different. Every single situation is different around the league. Coming up next, let's move on to Germany Sunday morning. We got the
Germany.
Indianapolis Colts 4-5 against the 2-7 New England Patriots. Colts are coming off a win in Carolina last week where Kenny Moore had 2 picks we talked about, and the Patriots are coming off that home loss against the Commanders. A little bit of a heartbreak in the end when they threw that pick when they were driving down to kick a field goal to tie it. Sam Howell, he threw a dime late in that game. Um, Colts are 4-5. They're they're still alive. I mean, not by any means, or is their season, is this a meaningless game for them? They're right in the middle of that AFC South. Obviously, the Jags are the favorite in that division, but the Colts have been pretty feisty all year. And right now, they're the only team in the NFL that has scored 20 points in every single one of their games. So that tells you something about the Colts. Their defense has not looked as good as it had been those first few weeks of the season. That's for sure. We talked about the usage of Shaq Leonard. Don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, they had the 2 pick sixes last week. Kenny Moore is a great player. He's been a great player in the league. So that didn't surprise me at all, seeing that from him and what we've seen from Carolina's offense as well. But gambling perspective, what do you got?
So I have an interesting stat about when a team opens um, as a dog, and then progressively throughout the week that line swings, and now they're the favorite. So that's exactly what happened with the Colts here. The Colts opened this game as a dog, and now they're 2-point favorites. So they are -2. The over-under's at 43. To be fair, last week, uh, I saw them. They were only, I think, 2.5-point favorites against the Panthers. Panthers were coming off of a bye week, I believe, or maybe it was the game against the Texans. I can't remember. I know they beat the Texans, and I think they had a bye, and they were coming into that game. But I was like, I don't know. I don't feel like 2.5 points is really that much to cover for the Colts against the Panthers. And then, Bryce Young, aside from those 2 pick sixes, like that game was a lot closer than what the final score indicated just due to those 2 pick sixes. So the Colts really didn't play good last week at all. They opened as dogs. They're now favorites. And when a team does that, teams are just 44 and 84 against the spread when they open as a dog and then become a favorite. So, not great. Not a great look for the Colts right now. Just off of that stat, it kind of feels like the value is, on the Patriots at this point. And, here I go again, right? Talking about the fucking Patriots and how I'm about
Every
to
week.
every fucking week, dude. Every week it feels like the value is just on the Patriots, and I cannot escape it. I mean, Minshew in his last 14 games is 3-11 against the spread, right? But then you counter that, Mac Jones is just 4-15 against the spread in his last 19 games. So this is another one, almost like that Bills Broncos line. Like, I don't really feel super comfortable picking either side here, and it feels like it's a pick your poison game. It might come down to, especially now that it's a Germany game, there's just so many variables in this one. I would stay very far away from this game if you're just a bettor. If you want to invest in this game just to get a little more interested in it, I really don't want to. I don't want to go Patriots here, but it really it really feels like the Patriots are the pick here. But it's is a tough one because you kind of essentially what you're doing is you're either putting your money in Mac Jones' hand or you're putting your money in Gardner Minshew's hands, and both of them over their last 15 to 20 games have been bad against the spread. So pick your poison, guys.
I'm putting my money in the hands, if anything, of those two quarterbacks playing bad. Um, Minshew, I like Minshew, but
Mm-hmm.
Patriots D has held up. I mean, take away
Yeah.
a throw that Sam Howell made, and then they didn't look great on the opening drive last week against Washington. But overall, I mean, that's a stingy defense, and Belichick's there handling that D. So I don't see Minshew having a great game. I don't see Mac Jones having a great game, even though the Colts unders have let me down last couple times. I've
Yeah.
tried it. I feel like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe third time's a charm with that,
Mm-hmm.
and it being in Germany too. And every time I bet the under for an international game, it's hit so far. So I'm thinking about it. I took the
Well,
over last week and I lost it in that Chiefs Dolphins game, but I'm thinking maybe under, but no big juicy bet by any means here, right?
the under might be the play here.
I'm thinking
That
so.
the under might be the play here.
Did I talk you into it?
It wouldn't have taken much, but yeah.
just thinking about it that way is both quarterbacks not having a great day. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
see I don't see a ton of points. I think it was 43, right?
yeah.
Yeah, not seeing it. Moving on though, 4-4 Houston Texans coming off that electric win last week, game-winning drive at the end. CJ Stroud talked about the day that he had on that previous episode. If you didn't hear about that, or that appreciation, the praise I was giving CJ Stroud, make sure you check that out because I had a lot to say about him and his development. But they're going at Cincinnati this week. Tough matchup against the Bengals, who are on fire right now. And I talked about last episode the Ravens being, in my opinion, the scariest team in the NFL right now, but Cincinnati's right below them, um, which is going to make for a fun finish for that AFC North. And we got Ravens Browns this week, so that's going to be fun. And then Ravens Bengals Thursday night. So, whew, we got some
Yeah.
fun matchups coming up from that division. There's still who knows what's going to happen with that. But talking about this game, I'm seeing 6.5. Um, I don't lean any certain way. I could see there being a lot of points scored in this game, but at the same time, I've been talking about that Bengals defense and their ability to get after the quarterback. And Stroud has looked pretty damn comfortable in that pocket most of the season. But how is that O line going to hold up? Who's been pretty? There hasn't been like a consistent O line in Houston all year. How is that O line going to hold up against that Cincy pass rush, who's on fire right now? And I think there's some players on that defense who we just there's like we never talk about those players on defense. The league's never talking about those like the Trey Hendricksons, the Hubbards, the Pratts, the Cam Taylor Britts, who I keep talking about. Cam Taylor Britt, Dax Hill. These guys aren't getting enough praise, in my opinion, and what they've done as a defense. So I looking at like CJ Stroud versus Joe Burrow and how these offenses have looked, I want to take the over, but at the same time, that Bengals defense could make a rookie quarterback's life living hell. But we haven't seen that. We haven't seen Stroud really affected by it so far.
Mhm.
So this one's tough for me. Probably going to stay away. But what do you got?
Yeah, the common theme you're going to hear on everything I have on this one is just how CJ Stroud is on the road compared to how he is at home. So, this game is in Cincinnati, 1 o'clock game. The line right now, depending on the sports book you use, can be anywhere from 6 to 7. I think it opened at 7. Right now, looking at DraftKings, I think it's at 6. You might be seeing it at 6.5 as well. So it's not, you know, anytime you see 7 points, you're like, it's kind of a lot, especially against two, when you have two solid teams. I don't want to, I can't come out and say like, yeah, the Texans are a good team. I'm just not there yet. I think the Texans have a lot of good pieces, and I think they're playing really hard for their head coach, and they have a good thing going now, especially with the rookie quarterback playing out of his mind. As an overall team, I can't say that they are good. I think they're playing above expectations, and it's a great story to start the year, and I don't want to take away from what they've done. But with that being said, a lot of the bets right now are coming in on Cincinnati, but a lot of the money is coming in on Houston. So Burrow's hot. Stroud is coming off one of the best games as a rookie quarterback ever. The Bengals defense, contrary to how they started the year, overall right now they're middle of the pack, meaning over the last probably 4 to 6 weeks, they've been one of probably the top 10 to 12 defenses, definitely in the top half of the league. So overall, they're middle of the pack right now. Stroud is very good under pressure, which is, it's going to play a role in this game because that Bengals pass rush is um, one of the better pass rushes in the league. And I think that, Stroud does a great job of reading everything and seeing it before it happens. And he's third in the league behind Tua and Burrow himself for the quickest release, right at 2 seconds. So I think that Stroud is going to do a good job at kind of limiting, the pass rush. I think he's going to be able to get the ball out of his hands. So I don't think there's going to be a huge emphasis on him as far as like having to be under pressure the whole game because he does get rid of it quick. So as of right now, it's a kind of a short sample size, but the splits are they're pretty obvious for Stroud on the road versus at home. So I'm going to get into that. One of the things to watch is the red zone. Cincinnati's been very good down there, and CJ Stroud hasn't. Stroud has a 9.3 yards per attempt at home. On the road, he's just 6.9. So that's almost 2.5 yard difference per attempt, home versus the road. His loss to Atlanta and Carolina on the road, they're just 1-3 on the road, with the sole win coming against the Jags. That was kind of before Jacksonville kind of got everything clicking. Not to take away from them, but you know they're 1-3 on the road. The Bengals are 3-1 at home, and their only loss at home was against the Ravens by 3 points. So I know, 7 is quite a bit here. So hopefully, if you're on the Bengals, 6, if you see this at 6, I think that's going to be a really good play. Even 6.5, 7 to 7.5 is going to be tough. So, and then to add to that, it doesn't look like Nico Collins is going to be playing either. And Nico has been, their best receiver. I think Stroud's number one target, maybe other than Schultz. So no, Noah Brown had a great game last week. He's probably going to see a lot more time this week, but
Tank
I like
Dell.
the Tank Dell. Tank Dell's
And I
been a
think Robert Woods is coming back too.
yes. Robert Woods is expected to play. Nico Collins is doubtful. Um, like I said, I think if you can get this at 6 or 6.5, I think Cincy's the play. I just like them at home in this situation. If the roles were reversed and Houston was playing at home, then I would really like Houston at 6 to 7. But I think the Bengals are the play here.
Yeah, and I think the Texans are going to have to establish a run game. We talk about being against that defense and on the road in that environment. Cincinnati's not an easy place to play. Those fans, those are great fans, and that's a tough environment. That's the jungle. That's welcome to the jungle for CJ Stroud. And they had 20 yards on the ground rushing last week. Yeah, they lit it up in the passing game, but you need to be able to establish the run against this Bengals defense because if they know you're just dropping back and you got to deal with Hendrickson, Hubbard on the edge, it's going to make for a long day, in my opinion, for Stroud. And I don't care how comfortable he's looked going into this
Mm-hmm.
year, how accurate he's been. It's going to make it really tough for him. And that is a good point with Nico Collins not expected to play.
Yeah, I
But
think that just to cap this one off, like I think this is a big statement game for CJ Stroud, coming off of a historic performance last week against a Buccaneers defense that's been exposed lately. Um, and the Bengals have been hot. Like this is a big game for CJ Stroud, a huge game for the Texans, right? I think the Texans are they are they at
4-4.
4-4, right? 500. Like Texans win this one, I think people are going to start talking about, okay, this team might have a shot at sneaking into the playoffs. Like I don't think anyone's going to assume that they'll end up winning the division over Jacksonville, but um, sneaking in as a wild card, if they win this game, I guarantee that will be a huge topic of conversation. So a huge, huge statement game for CJ Stroud and the Texans. I think this is going to be a fun one to watch, but I really like the Bengals if you can get them at 6 or 6.5 in this one.
Sweet. Let's move on to the Green Bay Packers, 3-5, visiting the 5-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. Packers are coming off that shit show win against my Rams last week, where I just talked about Brett Rippon being incompetent as a quarterback for us. It wasn't really anything
Yeah.
Jordan Love and the Packers did. Rippon ended up getting cut, the next day, and we signed Carson Wentz going into the bye. So that just tells you everything you need to know about how he played last week
Mhm.
in Green Bay. We should have had a chance to win that game, but we didn't. Quarterback took it out of our hands. So Green Bay is what it is. They're playing at Pittsburgh, who had that Thursday night win last week. Pretty good Thursday night game last week. Steelers Titans. It was. I thought the offense for them looked really good early. That first drive, we talked about it. And then it just kind of went back to the old Pittsburgh ways. I do think they're a lot more in rhythm as an offense right now than they were weeks ago. And I think Najee's run the ball better, than what we've seen him run it. And also the return and the emergence of Deontay Johnson has been great for that offense. But just because you got Deontay Johnson back now doesn't mean it's like, all right, well, we're not going to throw it to Pickens anymore. Like,
Yeah.
what's the deal with that? He didn't do anything last week. They didn't try to feature him at all. It's like we know Deontay Johnson's back and he's really good. And yes, feature Deontay Johnson because he can take he's that yak guy where
Mhm.
he can make your quarterback's job so much easier, and you could throw those intermediate short routes to him, and he's going to do something with the ball in his hands. That's Deontay Johnson, right? But now let's add that to what we've tried already doing with George Pickens. And
Mhm.
it's just a lot of those back shoulder throws where they throw to him, but they got to get more creative with what they're doing with George Pickens because I think that tandem right there of Deontay Johnson and George Pickens can be really special for them. But I just feel like there's no development right now. We see what they did with Johnson, but it's like we need to see that with George Pickens. And I don't think Kenny has played great football this year by any means. He's played great in some fourth quarters um, where he's getting them the win in the end, but I'm not seeing that consistent great quarterback play from him by any means. We talked about the scheme that they're in with Matt Canada, it being what it is, but we can't always just blame the coordinator without putting any of this on the shoulders of the quarterback. Because at the end of the day, the quarterback's the one on the field running the offense, executing the offense. It's not the guy calling the plays. But Tyler, what do you got on this game?
Yeah, and then kind of to touch on um, what we mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Bills and Ken Dorsey and how the fact that he's still around means he's going to be around for the rest of the year. Same thing with the Steelers offensive coordinator. He's here for the long haul. So they've got to get that figured out. I think last week was uh, that Thursday night game. I don't want to say it was a good sign because that Titans D, um, their backfield, their pass defense has not been good all year. So I don't want to overreact to the fact that Deontay Johnson had a good game and Pickens did absolutely nothing. But I do think that maybe in a couple weeks when they get Fryermuth back and they can start to build that chemistry between those two receivers, like you mentioned, they can get something really good going. Like they have the pieces on the offensive end. They have Warren, Najee Harris, Fryermuth, Johnson, Pickens, Pickett. Soon like it's going to be all in Pickett's hands. Like you have everything around you, kind of like Tua. Before going into last year, when we were like, all right, Tua, you got Waddle. Now you have Tyreek Hill. They've got all these backs around you. Like they invested heavily in the offensive line. Now you have to show that you're that guy. Soon we're going to have the same exact conversation with Pickett. I know this is only a second year, but that conversation is going to be had very soon. To touch on the betting side of things, the Steelers are 3-point favorites in this one at home. The over/under is 38.5. We kind of know what the deal is when Tomlin is a home favorite versus a home dog. And I honestly I don't have a whole lot on this game. Other than Tomlin is just not as profitable when he's a favorite versus a dog. Like I just said, both teams stink in the first half of games. So I think what a solid play might be that you could probably throw a couple of units on would be maybe an under in the first half, depending on what it is. I haven't actually looked that up yet, but I think that could be a solid play. But my final takeaway, kind of no matter what's presented to me leading up into Sunday, is really just this: like, do we trust Jordan Love to get it done against this Steelers defense? No, I don't. I certainly do not. So if someone can convince me otherwise, please, message the New Score podcast, get into the DMs, and let me know.
I'd
Otherwise,
love to
like,
hear it. I'd love to
yeah,
hear your reasoning.
I can't get behind Jordan Love against the Steelers defense. And we're not talking like 6 to 7 points. We're talking 3 points. I mean, I know that the Packers defense they're no joke, but this Steelers defense is for real. Jordan Love is not. I don't think that the Packers get it done. I really don't. So I think the play here is Steelers -3. That's all I
I
got on that
got
one.
Yeah, what I'm taking away from this game is I think this is going to be really, really sloppy. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be some sloppy offensive football. Green Bay's defense has been so inconsistent. They haven't stopped the run well, and they're not playing nearly as good as we expected them to play. Like going into this season, everybody was talking about how great the Packers defense was, and now Jordan Love stepping in. He's got a good run game. He's got all these young weapons. Like he's going to be fine because he's got a good team around him. Their defense stunk, to open up the year. I think they have looked better in spots, but at the same time, they're so inconsistent. I don't know what I'm going to expect out of the Packers defense, but I do expect some sloppy football. I love that first half under. We talk about Green Bay starting out slow, and we don't see Pittsburgh offense, lighting the world on fire. Could be
Yeah.
afraid of a defensive touchdown or two in this game when it comes to betting the under
Mm-hmm.
with TJ Watt out there for Pittsburgh. But I like the idea of that first half under, and I might end up taking 38 and a half. I might take the under on this game in a whole. Maybe that and the
Yeah.
first half, honestly.
Yeah, and I was gonna say like the game last week that you already touched on, the Packers Rams game, as bad as Brett Rippon was, like the Packers didn't do that much offensively. The Rams defense being a little banged up in last week's game, like they held up really well against the Packers offense when the Rams offense just couldn't move the ball. So it felt like the Packers just had solid field position the whole game. And I think they ended up putting like 20 something points on the board. But when
It's 20 to
you're
3.
20-3, like you only put up 20 points against the Rams in that situation with Brett Rippon not moving the ball at all. Like,
Turning it over, fumbling snaps,
yeah,
missing field goals.
like the Steelers they're going to be able to move the ball a little bit, and they're not going to like there's not going to be that bad. So for the Packers to only put up 20 points last week, like to your point, taking the under, like I don't know if the Packers are going to even score more than a touchdown in this one. Yeah, I would be very surprised if the Packers scored 2 touchdowns in this game.
Yeah, we're on the same boat this game. Tennessee Titans 3-5 at the 3-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a big game for both these teams. I mean, you don't want to fall to 3-6. First thoughts looking at this, Vrabel is an underdog in this game. This is going to be a big juicy bet for me.
Ooh,
Tennessee Titans on the road. I love this spot for them. Vrabel is a dog. I'll take it any day of the week. It,
yeah.
in this situation against that Bucks team that gave up what they gave up against CJ Stroud last week, that defense does not look the same anymore. They just don't look like they got it. I think Todd Bowles, this is it for him in Tampa. after this year. It's so stale. It's like a stale feeling in that with that team right now.
Yeah.
Baker looked great last week, though. I don't want to not mention that the way Baker Mayfield played last week was really fun to watch, and I like Baker Mayfield. I was happy to see that. I was happy to see um, how well he played. I felt bad for him in the end, honestly, just seeing him on the bench. He was crushed after that game-winning touchdown that Houston had, but it was a shootout, and credit to both quarterbacks for that. But getting back to the Titans, we got Vrabel as a dog. Will Levis coming in now. I think this is back-to-back weeks where that Bucks defense can get exposed by a rookie quarterback. And I like the Levis to D Hop connection right now. And then he's also getting these other guys involved. He's also getting, I believe Phillips was involved last week for them. They got Traylon Burks. I know he got hurt last week in Pittsburgh, though, but he should be good to go. So they got Burks. They got to start featuring him, and maybe he will because Tannehill wasn't. So, but I believe in Will Levis. I believe in his ability to spread the ball around to those guys. Um, Derrick Henry. I don't. The Bucks defense can still stop the run. I will say that. I think the Titans can find a way to run in some spots and then get into play action and expose that Bucks secondary that is their weakness. I think Will Levis has that capability. I don't see Baker Mayfield by any means doing anything like he did last week against that Houston defense. I don't see that happening again against this Tennessee defense. Tennessee's secondary has been down this year, I would say, but that front seven can get at you for the Titans, and I like their defense in this spot. I'm going to take the Titans. It's my first big juicy bet.
Juicy. Yeah, so I to touch like the way that Baker played last week and the amount of points that they put up on the Houston defense, that's another kind of reason why I really like the Bengals this week. Like if Baker can do it, Burrow can do it. But also Will Levis, he was a projected first round pick. There's a reason why the kid was projected to go in the first round. Really what it came down to and the reason why he ended up falling into the second round is essentially just due to like teams addressing their needs. And he just happened to fall into the second round, but I do think it had a big reason to do with just his numbers versus the SEC that NFL teams like to kind of put on a pedestal nowadays. But yeah, I think that you got to love Will Levis in this situation. You have to love Rabel as a dog. Over the last 20 years, Todd Bowles is out of 148 coaches as far as profitability against the spread. Todd Bowles, out of 148 coaches, is ranked 143. So he is almost in the bottom 5 in the last 20 years as far as profitability against the spread. It is just not good. It is not good. So the fact that we have a juicy bet on this one, Vrabel as a dog, the Bucks defense hasn't been good lately. Pro Football Focus, they're ranked bottom 5 in rush defense, which we know that's what the Titans love to do, is run the ball with Derrick Henry.
Bucks
They're
defenses?
bottom 5 in rush.
What happened?
Bottom 5 in rush defense. Their pass defense is bottom 10, and then their coverage is ranked in the bottom 5 as well. So in just all facets right now, kind of across the board, this is just, this is according to Pro Football Focus, which I think that over the last few years we've kind of come to trust their grading system a little more than when they first came out. Like this Bucks defense has been getting exposed lately, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think that what's the total points on this one? We got 39. I think that another good solid pick, if anyone's out there and they're kind of 50-50 on whether to take the Bucks or the Titans on this one, another safe play might be the over, because the Titans D backfield, their pass defense has not been great. That's been a common theme week to week when we talk about the Titans. And, Baker has done a, a great job, in my opinion, this year, especially getting the ball to Mike Evans. I can see Baker throwing for 250, having a couple touchdowns, but I just think that the Titans offense, their run game, and then just everything that they're going to have going, I think it's just going to be too much for the Bucs. So I love the fact that Pat has a juicy bet on this one. Love Rabel as a dog. Like I said, the stat you want to hear here: Todd Bowles 143 out of 148 against the spread as far as profitability in the last 20 years. So go Titans.
Yeah, all in on the Titans this week. That is an insane stat with Todd Bowles. Like I said, I think this is it for him after this year.
Yeah.
Moving on to my second big juicy bet of the week.
Ooh.
Yeah, we got one coming for this game. I only have two right now, so everybody, we're gonna get you what we got at the moment. Right now, I just have two big juicy bets, but by kickoff Sunday, we will have all of those big juicy bets out on our IG. By the way, it's new_score_podcast. So make sure you're checking up with that. The big juicy bets will be on there, and we'll be ready to roll. We have the Cleveland Browns 5-3 at the 7-2 Baltimore Ravens. I am absolutely stoked for this game. Stoked for it. I love me some AFC North football.
Yeah.
Cleveland's coming off that 27-0 blowout against the Cardinals last week, and then Baltimore's coming off that 37-3 blowout against Seattle last week. I talked about the Ravens being the scariest team in the league right now to me, but I also talked about how that AFC North does seem to be where Lamar is playing his worst football, and it's been a trend that's gone on now, and it's all being familiar with him. They got something on him that no other teams have, and I hope maybe you have this stat. I know there's a stat out there. I can't think of it at the top of my head of these AFC North matchups hitting on unders. But I love the under in this matchup because Deshaun Watson looks like a shell of himself compared to what we saw in Houston. That contract is going to be, I mean, who knows? That might go if he continues to look like this that we've seen this season, and this is him going forward, that's going to go down as top 5 worst trades in NFL history for what they had to give up for that production and those draft picks, and then what you had to pay him, and you had to reset the market with that contract. That's where the Browns are at right now. They're also at a point where their defense is amazing. Myles Garrett is an absolute freak. He might be, I mean, he's obviously top 3 defensive player in the league right now. Is he your defensive player of the year? That we can argue. We can go back and forth on that. But their defense is balling out right now. They look so good. And I talked about last episode when I was talking about the Ravens being scary. They can beat you in any type of game. They can score points on you. They can score points on you. They can make the game messy if they have to. They're going to find a way to do what they have to do to win a football game. That's where I think the Ravens are at right now. There's just so many styles that they ran for 300 yards rushing last week, and they still have the ability to throw the ball on you with how Lamar looks right now, his accuracy, the deception in that offense, everything, getting Zay Flowers going. It's really fun to watch, but going against that Browns defense who knows Lamar, and I haven't even mentioned like how good the Ravens defense has looked lately, and the emergence of Kyle Van Noy after signing him, and Roquan Smith leading that defense, who we were talking about with Todd earlier. And that guy's having, the time of his life in Baltimore right now, leader of that defense. They got such a good mix of young talent and they're always drafting great players on that defense. They don't draft anything but studs to play defense in Baltimore. You got a good mix of that, and then you also have your vets, with your Kyle Van Noys and Marlon Humphrey, and they got the same, like their safeties are still, they got a mix of like of old and young. Like they got everything on that defense right now. They look so good, and the offense is what it is. But going against this Cleveland defense, I like the under in this one.
The Browns defense is just graded near the top in almost every category. You know, if Deshaun Watson can limit the turnovers against the Ravens defense, that's been very tough. The Browns could keep this game very close. So, a couple stats. Harbaugh, when he's favored by 3.5 points or more, is under 500 against the spread. And over his career, and over the last 3 years, it's just 3-14. So I'll say that again. When Harbaugh is favored by 3.5 points or more over the last 3 years, he is 3-14 against the spread. This doesn't mean that they lose, it just means that they don't cover the spread. Lamar Jackson, in that same scenario, is just 20-29, which is 168th out of 175 quarterbacks against the spread in the last 20 years. Kind of an insane stat, but it kind of checks out in these situations. And, home favorites inside of this division since 2015 are just 45% against the spread. So everything statistically is just pointing at Cleveland. And the only reason why I have such a conundrum picking and going with Cleveland here is solely based on Deshaun Watson's questionable play. You just, like I said, you don't know what you're going to get from this guy week to week, and that's the only thing holding me back here and making me think like, maybe we just ride the Ravens hot streak, because I feel like every time I've bet against Baltimore this year, it's, I got burned. But I just feel like Cleveland's the play. With that stat of Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson when they're favored by 3.5 points or more, and especially inside the division, I don't know, guy. I feel like Cleveland's the play here. I know this game is in Baltimore. Who knows what the weather's going to be like this time of year up there, but I don't know. I think I'm kind of
You need a
siding.
weather girl.
I know. Where's our Hannah Storm? I really feel like Cleveland's the play here, though, at 6.5.
Yeah. I love the under in this one. It's be a big juicy bet for me. And if I had to go either way, I'm probably with you on that, in the fact that I just think it's going to be a close game.
The dogfight.
I don't think the Ravens. Yes, they're the scariest team in the league to me right now, but I think this could be like a dogfight. It's going to be a close game in my opinion. Could be a lot of field goals in this too.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, San Francisco 49ers 5-3 coming off their bye at Duval. The 6-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. Niners are favored on the road, coming off that bye. Jacksonville is hot right now, sitting at 6-2 above that AFC South. Offense looks sharp, defense looks good. Everything's clicking right now in Jacksonville. Weedy, it's been time. I mean, we got questions with a fan segment again to this episode, and we want to talk some Jaguars football with you. So, I mean, whenever you're ready, we're ready for you, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about this game, this is a big game for Brock Purdy in my eyes, coming off the bye. We talked about how his season, he was up here, and then these last few weeks down here. Everybody's killing the kid. Very low on him right now as a quarterback. A lot of the system quarterback talk being thrown in. I think this is a huge game for him. But Deebo Samuel is expected to play, and I think that is enormous for Brock Purdy and this 49ers offense because of what Deebo can do in that run game, in that pass game. Deebo is a dog out there. and he's a real problem on that offense. Like obviously, yeah, they got McCaffrey too, but Debo, just having him back gives your offense just a whole nother threat that
Yeah.
the defense has to game plan for, and it's not easy. Debo is a tough player to defend. He really is. So I'm excited for him to play again, assuming he is going to be back. He's projected to have points for me in fantasy, so I'm hoping. But talking to Jacksonville, they're on a roll right now too, and I
They
believe
are.
they're coming off a bye as well.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence looks really good. He had that knee issue a couple weeks back, but it feels like it hasn't phased him at all
Mm-hmm.
since then. ETN looks amazing. I really like what that offense is doing, getting him involved in receiving game, run game, like how they're utilizing ETN. That's like I would love to see James Cook in that role in Buffalo. You know what I mean? Because I feel like he's that same type of dude.
Yeah.
But ETN looks really good, and then they got weapons on the outside. We've seen Calvin Ridley have one catch. We've seen Calvin Ridley have like 8 or 9 catches in a game. But it's like either way, their offense looks good no matter who's getting involved. There's just a lot going on in Jacksonville, and that defense is playing really good right now too. With
Mm-hmm.
like Josh Allen, contract year for him, and he's showing that he deserves that extension. But what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I think that this game is kind of playing right into the hands of Jacksonville. Like Jacksonville's run defense has been really good, and that's what you need to do when you play the 49ers. You need to stop the run against them. Obviously, easier said than done with McCaffrey and everything that they have going on, especially getting Trent Williams back, getting Debo Samuel back, adding that additional threat. But if you can focus on and key in on stopping the run and just force Brock Purdy to beat you, I think Jacksonville can live with that, right? Both teams coming off of a bye. Shanahan is not great as a road favorite. Niners are on a 3-game losing streak. Jags are on a 5-game winning streak. Looking ahead at the weather, it could be a windy day, so we could see you know, a lot more runs than we do passes. So this could be more of a run heavy game depending on how windy it gets out there. Because I believe this game is in Jacksonville. So, excuse me, both defenses have been very good, better than what people perceive. I know that, it kind of sounds funny to hear that when you talk about San Francisco's defense, but over the last 3 weeks, they haven't been great. I think that this bye week getting everybody healthy for them, and then same thing on the
Chase
Jacksonville.
Young,
Yes, you add Chase Young, everybody else gets healthy. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, health being a thing as well, getting Ingram healthy, getting Trevor Lawrence more time to heal up that knee. Zay Jones, I'm not 100% sure if he's going to be available or not, but, like you mentioned, the Jags have a lot of weapons. This is going to be a great game. I, in general, just love home dogs. We talk about it all the time. So the Jags in this one are the home dogs at +3, over under 44.5. Purdy has not looked good, over the last few games. This might come down to who you believe in more, whether that's Lawrence versus Purdy or Shanahan versus Peterson. Under Shanahan, after a bye week, they're 2-3, and then overall for Shanahan, he's 3-4 against the spread after a bye week. Peterson, not much to go on there after a bye week. They're 1-0, so it's not a whole lot of on Peterson. But Shanahan hasn't been great coming off of a bye, so I think that's something you can take into effect here. The fact that Jacksonville's a home dog, they've had time to get healthy. I like Jacksonville in this at +3. I don't love it, but I like it. So my play here would be Jacksonville +3. Maybe heading into Sunday, you can get a better line. So if you're not very confident in that 3, maybe wait and see if you can get 3.5 to 4 heading into Sunday.
personally, I'm staying away from this game, but this is probably my favorite game of the week. This is my favorite matchup. I love what we could see in this game. This is going to be fun. And being in Jacksonville just makes it even that more fun in
Mm-hmm.
that environment and that atmosphere. So
Yeah.
should be a great game. Capping off the 1 o'clock slate, we got the 5-4 New Orleans Saints going against the 5-4 Minnesota Vikings. Right now, the Saints are favored on the road. Josh Dobbs, that miracle win last week in Atlanta. And then New Orleans, was it Chicago that they beat? Yeah, they beat
Mm-hmm.
Chicago. Game we covered a little bit in the beginning with how they kept getting these turnovers and the offense just wasn't doing anything with it. They were turning it into field goals. They were turning it into missed field goals. It's just like there was no rhythm in the red zone for that Saints offense last week. My first thoughts on this game, I'm seeing, what are you seeing? I'm seeing three.
Yep.
This isn't a big juicy bet by any means. Not convinced in any way, but I'm leaning. I'm probably going to tease that to 3.5 and take Minnesota at home. I see this being, you know, I don't see the Saints blowing the Vikings out by any means on the road in Minnesota. I could see, if anything, the Saints pulling off a field goal in the end. I think it stays at that though, so I think I'm going to tease that 3.5. I like what I saw from Dobbs last week. Saints got a good defense, but their offense has been so inconsistent. And my buddy texted me earlier today, and he said, "Should I play Trevor Lawrence against the Niners, or should I play Derek Carr against the Vikings?" And at first, it's like, is the Vikings defense really getting that much heat now? Like, are we not realizing this Vikings defense is a hell of a lot better than they were last year? Like, Brian Flores has got those guys playing so much better on the defensive side. They don't have much talent wise, but they're doing what they can do in that unit. Brian Flores is a great defensive mind. So we need to realize this population as a whole, like that Vikings defense, that's no walk in the park anymore. And with the Saints being so inconsistent on offense, I told him, like, dude, take the matchup out of it. I'm starting Trevor Lawrence over Derek Carr no matter what the matchup is, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I have those two quarterbacks, I'm playing Lawrence over Carr no matter what. And that's just me. But getting back to the game, I like the Vikings teasing it at 3.5. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, as far as your boy picking between those two quarterbacks, I think one of the biggest takeaways, if you are factoring in the matchup, I think that's the only reason why he's hesitant here, right? Is that you got the Niners defense in front of Lawrence, and then for Carr, it's the Vikings defense, which has a kind of a cloud over them as being one of the worst defenses this year. And throughout the first 4 or 5 weeks, like, that was true. But over the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's not true. I think they've cleaned up a lot on the defensive end. And then the biggest thing to me is, if and when the Saints get down inside the red zone, it's no longer Derek Carr. Like, the Saints have, to their credit, realized, hey, earlier in the year, we weren't utilizing Taysom Hill the way that we should have been, and now they are. So Taysom Hill down inside the red zone is their guy. So you're going to see, out of maybe 5 snaps down inside the red zone, like, Derek Carr is not even going to be on the field. There's going to be a couple snaps where he's not on the field and it's just Taysom Hill, whether they try to do a little power run inside the 10 or inside the 5. That, I think, takes away a lot from a fantasy perspective. That takes away
For sure.
for Derek Carr's value. So I would definitely play Lawrence over Carr in this one. With that being said, on the Saints and Vikings game, we touched on it earlier. The Saints played awful last week and were lucky to even come away with a win against the Bears, who had 5 turnovers. And all of those turnovers were in Bears territory. And the Saints converted those 5 turnovers in Bears territory to just 10 points. Albeit the very last turnover, they ended up getting a first down and then just kneeing it to run out the clock. But still, out of 5 turnovers in opponent's territory to only come away with 10 points, one missed field goal and a punt, like that's not good. It's just not good. And then against a defense that, the Bears defense first week with Montez Sweat, they've been playing better as of late. So that is what it is, right? People I think are going to be very high off of just last week on what Dobbs did, and I think it's going to be a bit of an overreaction. Like what Dobbs did last week might not happen again for a very long time. Like we're talking about a middle of the pack quarterback. I think if people have quarterback rankings, Dobbs doesn't crack the top 20. He might not even crack the top 25 or 30 for some people. And then he comes in against a formidable Falcons defense and does what he does. Like that was insane. That's not, he has what, maybe 5 or 6 plays that he knows from the playbook. And like you said last episode, you probably have the head coach in there like, all right, here's what we're going to do. X is going to be doing this, Y is going to be doing this, and then Z is going to be doing this. So depending on the coverage, hit this guy, and he's got 20 seconds to process that.
Good luck.
Right. So the value here for this game, in my opinion, is on the Saints. The bet or the line right now, excuse me, is -3 for the Saints. So the Vikings are the home dog here, which we've talked about how we love home dogs in general, but I think the value right now is on the Saints. I touched on the red zone issues that the Saints did have, but ever since they've been utilizing Taysom Hill the way that they should, they've been a lot better in the red zone, especially getting Kamara in there as well. And then since about week 3 or so, Taysom Hill is actually tied with Travis Kelce for the number 1 tight end in fantasy. So, yeah, I guess let that sink in. Over the last 3 weeks, I think that Taysom Hill's had like just a crazy 3 weeks, and that's really why that stat is what it is, but I'll let that sink in for everyone. Josh Dobbs as a starter over his last 10 games is just 1-9. So I really feel like the Saints are the right play here, as much as I hate to bet on them again and again, just like I do with the fucking Patriots. I just feel like the Saints are the right play here, -3 on the road. That is who I'm going to take. I am going to wait until probably I'm going to look at tomorrow. If the line goes up to 3.5, I'm going to take it right away because I don't want to take the chance of it getting to 4. But also, if this line moves down to 2.5, I'm also taking that as soon as possible. So I think 3 is it's a good spot here to take it. If you want to be patient and wait till Sunday to see if it moves, feel free.
Not fair in my opinion what you did, Josh Dobbs right there, saying he's 1-9 his last is a starter because that debacle in Arizona that he had to deal with. But
Yep.
is what it is. We can agree to disagree on this one. We don't disagree very often. So it's always nice when we got one of these where we do have different opinions and people can take it from both sides. Again, I'm just stressing the fact that I don't see the Saints converting in the red zone very effectively. So I think it is going to be a close game. I think the Taysom Hill thing is kind of very fluky. I had Taysom Hill in fantasy the first few weeks because I was waiting for that. And there was just none of it. He wasn't getting chances to do anything. I think it's very hot and cold. And I think it's been like that ever since Sean Payton left. There's never any consistency with Taysom Hill in that offense. So I'm not banking on that as, their effectiveness in the red zone. But moving on to Josh Dobbs' old team, the Arizona Cardinals, 1-8, hosting the 4-5 Atlanta Falcons, coming off that heartbreaker against the Vikings last week at home. Broke our hearts. I lost my parlay. Tyler lost big juicy bet. That was a rough one to swallow. Cardinals coming off that debacle in Cleveland where Tune was just thrown into it in the dog pound against that defense. You just had no chance. And we knew that going into that game. I don't really have much to touch on other than I'm surprised I'm seeing 2 points.
Yep.
I'm very surprised Atlanta is just a 2-point favorite here.
Kyler Murray.
Oh, Kyler Murray.
He's
He
back.
is back, isn't he?
He's back.
Oh man, this one I was about to say like I don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
and now I do understand. So I feel like an idiot now. Kyler Murray was back. I completely forgot about it, dude. I completely forgot Kyler Murray's coming back.
Yep.
Wow.
That's hard.
So now we have so much more to talk about. I was about to just skip over this game, dude.
Yeah.
And this is no, I'm watching this shit now.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, this is the start of the 4 o'clock slate. Kyler Murray's return against the Atlanta Falcons. Wow. I don't know how. I mean, what can we really expect for him in his first game back? Do know
Yeah.
he's a hell of a lot better option than what they had out there last week for him.
Tune.
I'm excited to see it. I think Kyler Murray's an exciting quarterback.
Oh yeah.
We he's gotten enough criticism over these last couple of years, deservedly so. But at the very minimum, he is an exciting watch. So I'm happy to see him back. I'm excited to watch this game now. Atlanta Falcons, get Bijan the ball, man. That's all I got. We got Heineke in there. We got the right quarterback in there, right? We made that jump. We made that step. Defense needs to play a hell of a lot better. Defense needs to be playing like they were for Ritter, like they're going to for Heineke. We need to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Like play the same defense you were with Ritter as your quarterback with Heineke, and now we got something, Atlanta. And like I said, get Bijan involved because he's too good. You invested that first round pick this year in him. Use him. We want to see him.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to see him. We want to see Drake London. We want to see Kyle Pitts. These are the guys that you invested a lot in. But that's all I got. Excited to see Kyler Murray back.
Yeah. I have 4 words in my notes for this game. That's it. Kyler Murray is back. That's all I have on this game. Just to touch on your point about Bijan Robinson, the more I think about that, I'm like, okay, are they playing the long game here? Like they have to be. That's the only thing that makes sense right here about his usage, right? They're playing the long game and they're just trying to make sure that he is available and that he won't have 3 or 4 really good years and then fall off the table because they just overused him. And then again, that's why they have Algier as well. But at some point you have to say to yourself as a football team, like, we have the most explosive player on the field and we're not using him to the best in the best way that we can. And I think that at some point they have to look at that and just go turn him loose. Just give the guy 20 carries. I know they like to use him a lot as a receiving back, which is fine. But I like how they do use him in the passing game, but you have to use him more out of the backfield, in my opinion. If Josh Dobbs can do it on short notice, Kyler Murray can do it on short notice against this Falcons defense. The only thing that I'm a little hesitant on, because I think that +2 for the Cardinals is not bad at all. The only thing I'm hesitant on is the fact that there has to be a bit of a rust factor for Kyler Murray, right? He hasn't played in an NFL game in close to, if not over a year. Everything's going to be very fast for him. So what I kind of like that Packers Steelers game is maybe an under in the first half, or something along those lines, because it might take Kyler Murray a little bit to shake off that rust. But maybe in the second half, once he gets up to speed, right, he gets 3, 4, 5 possessions under his belt. He goes into the locker room at halftime. They make adjustments, and then he comes back out. I like the Cardinals in this one. Like I said, if Josh Dobbs can do it on short notice, Kyler Murray can do it. So and plus every time I bet the Falcons, I get burned. I mean, I feel like I got to learn my lesson at some point here. So we'll see. This is a bit of, I don't love it though, guys. I really don't. I do not love this bet, but if I had to go with something, Cardinals +2.
All right. Moving on to another exciting. We talk about Kyler Murray being exciting, getting to see him back in action. Lions Chargers though this game 6-2 Lions coming off a bye, going against the 4-4 Chargers who won by default, I guess, against the Jets on Monday night because that was a shit show. Chargers defense did look good, yeah, but the Jets offense is what it is. Lions coming off a bye. They looked so good getting Jahmyr Gibbs involved finally. We talked about Bijan getting involved in Atlanta. Well, Detroit finally got Gibbs in action the last time they played. That was really fun to watch. Once they can mix him and Montgomery, finally get those two, on the same page together. You got that thunder and lightning. With Jared Goff, he's so good in that play action. Like if you establish a run game with Jared Goff, he's going to dice you up in play action because he's going to have that comfortable pocket because they got a good O line and you got the threat of the run game. And if he could just make throws and stand comfortably in the pocket, Jared Goff's going to kill you. And the Chargers offense, they did not look great, but it was the Jets defense. So it's like, how much can we take away from, the Chargers defense looking great last week against that offense? And then how can we look at the Chargers offense not looking good, but it was against that Jets defense. So it's like, it's tough to really judge them off that game. But this is a test for them. They're at home. This is a game that, like, they're 4-4 right now, right? And we continue to talk about the potential of Justin Herbert and all these tools that he has. Like, he's a great quarterback, right? But these games, these are the games that you need to make your mark as a quarterback, as a leader, and really show up for your team. I want to see what Justin Herbert does in this game. I want to see him. I want to see him get Eckler involved because since that Week 1 performance that Eckler had, I know he got hurt. Since he's come back from injury, we haven't seen Eckler get going in that offense. And I know they're missing Mike Williams, but they got plenty of other options on that offense. And you got Kellen Moore calling the plays, who we think is a good offensive play caller, and you got Justin Herbert. So we need to start seeing it from that offense. We need to start seeing the results. Detroit's got a good defense, so I think that's going to be a great matchup, seeing Chargers offense against Detroit's defense. And then on the other side, it's a great matchup either way because you got Detroit's offense, what they can do in the run and then in the pass against that Chargers defense, who is the highest paid in the league. Are they for real? Like, we saw what you did on Monday night, but let's see it in this game against this Detroit offense. What do you got?
Uh, yeah. Eckler, since coming back against the Cowboys, has been bad at best. He has not been good one time. He has been bad. And whether that is due to the play calling of Kellen Moore, which is sometimes his only scrutiny, whatever it is, they need to get him back on track. That he seems like he could be that X factor for the offense of them being a middle of the pack offense versus a top 5 offense. And Kellen Moore in his last, 3 or 4 years in Dallas, they had the number 1 offense overall. So Kellen Moore can do it. You have the weapons available with the Chargers. You have a really good quarterback. They can get it done. They just need to get it figured out. This could be this might not be the game for that, though. So for the Lions, you got to get rid of that Ravens game. You just have to flush it. Forget about it. That was a game that flopped. Every team has that, every year, no matter how good the team is, how great they are. They have a game or two throughout the year where they flop. They just don't come to play. It happens. It's the NFL. The Chargers right now, they just don't look like they're it. They look like a middle of the pack team right now, whereas the Lions look like one of the better teams in the NFC and even a top 8 team in the league. Lions are now, they're healthy as, now as they've ever been this year. So you're going to get Montgomery back. Gibbs is healthy. That run game is going to be very tough to stop. That offense in general is going to be tough to stop. Lions, off of a bye under our boy Danny Campbell. Um, they're just 1-1 against the spread, so there's really not a whole lot there. Chargers, so far this year against NFC opponents, they're being outgained ever so slightly, 370 to 366 against NFC opponents, but they're 2-1 with wins against the Kirk-led Vikings and the Bears, and then a 3-point loss to the Cowboys. Detroit against the AFC this year, they're outgaining opponents 397 to 325. Even when you add in that blowout loss with the Ravens, they're still outgaining their opponents by almost 75 yards per game. And they're also 2-1 with that one loss coming against the Ravens. So it's, take that as you will. Like I said, he's back. As far as the Chargers, they're going to be without Williams again. They don't have Josh Palmer. I think the biggest thing here, because I think when it comes to the Lions defense, their defensive backfield has kind of been like that one question mark about their defense, possibly holding them back. Quentin Johnston, as of right now, looks like a big miss. He looks like a whiff for the Chargers, who spent a first-round pick on him this year. Especially with a ton of receiver talent in this draft this year, including tight end talent. And let's not get it twisted. Like the tight ends for the Chargers are not great. Donald, Parham Jr. I feel like is only relevant because the dude's like 6'8" or 6'9". He's just a big guy on the field. He's a huge target. Other than that, Gerald Everett, obviously throughout his
Hater.
career, has been a bit of a letdown. But there was a lot of tight ends they could have taken in this draft. They could have they had their pick of the litter, and they skipped on tight ends. They went with Quentin Johnston, and right now what teams are doing is they're double teaming Keenan Allen, and they're leaving Johnston one-on-one with no safety help over the top, and they're just not getting it done. Like, what does that tell you? If a defense is that comfortable leaving this rookie first round pick one-on-one with no safety help over the top, double teaming Keenan Allen, and you're still not getting any production from that rookie receiver, what does that tell you? He's just not getting it done. I saw some statistics where he's like ranking in the bottom of all receivers. And I mean, there's some crazy statistics that I didn't really want to add in here because I've never really even heard of them, but it's kind of comes down to like win rates versus defensive backs. And he's just been bad. So the Lions opened up this game as 1-point favorites, and now it's up to 3. So it makes me worry a little bit. But I love I love the Lions in this spot a lot more than I do the Chargers. I don't think that what they did against the Jets is anything to take away. I think that yeah, it might be a bit of an overreaction on what they did against the Jets, if anything, because shoot, I should have wrote this down too. There was a stat, like the Jets were one of the only teams in NFL history to have like I forget what it was. It's just something stupid, just some stupid stat where essentially makes the Jets look a little bit better coming out of that, and makes the Chargers look a little bit worse coming out of that game. So, I really like the Lions here at -3.
To your point, that Chargers offense, I like Gerald Everett. I don't love him. I've felt that way his whole career. I don't think we featured him enough. I don't think Sean McVay featured him enough. There were some times where they did feature him. I thought he looked really good. I thought he's a really good young tight end. We lost him to Seattle. He didn't really do anything there, and then he sat with the Chargers, and I thought that was going to be good for them. But he is pretty inconsistent. So I thought like, hey, if they drafted Kincaid, that could have been nice for that tight end room, or even drafted Michael Mayer. I thought would have been good for that team.
Yeah.
But what that offense is missing, in my opinion, is they're missing that burner. They're missing that quick guy that they could put in the slot. Keenan Allen is great in the slot. You could put him anywhere, though. I think they're really missing that speed aspect, like that Zay Flowers. Like if they would have made the Zay Flowers pick there, I think that would have been huge for that offense because I think And they have somebody, I think, like Darius Davis, young receiver for them, who returned the punt um, on Monday Night Football against the Jets, returned a punt for a touchdown. That's their quick guy. So why not feature him more in that offense? Like get him going a little bit because he can add a little more explosiveness to it. But either way, it should be an exciting game. I'm excited for it. Moving on to what shouldn't be an exciting game, and that's the 2-7 New York Giants going against the 5-3, your 5-3 Dallas Cowboys, coming off that tough loss in Philly last week. But we talked about it. We both thought they outplayed Philly for the majority of that game, and there was a lot of good to take away from that. There's no moral victories in this sport, but there was a lot of good to take away from that. I think for the Cowboys, the Giants, it's just a shit show right now. It's back to what it has been, before that run that they made last year. I mean, losing like they did last week in Vegas after Vegas fired the coach. I'm not sure, is DeVito or Barkley starting for them? Do you know?
DeVito has been named the full-time starter for the remainder of the year.
So that's why it's a 17-point spread right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is just absurd in an NFL game.
Yep.
We know the Cowboys always blow out bad teams. Well, it seems like they always blow out bad teams at home,
Mm-hmm.
but 17 is a lot of points. I don't want to talk too much about this game. I'm not too excited about this game because I think the Cowboys are a really good football team, and I think the Giants are a really bad football team. It's just that simple. I said what I said about Dallas last week and how I think there's some guys that are stepping up in roles due to injuries for them that look really good. I think Dak is doing a lot better job of spreading the ball around the field. We know you and CeeDee Lamb can light it up, but continuing to get those tight ends involved, continuing to get these other receivers involved. And I know you ranted about, let's see some Tony Pollard like we have been these last couple of years. Let's see Tony Pollard out of the backfield catching passes, getting him on the edge. Just stop running him in between the tackles and utilize those other backs that you have too. So to me, I probably will bet this game. I'll probably tease that line down from 17 and take Dallas just because I think 17 is absurd, even with what we've seen from the Giants and Tommy DeVito since he's gone in there. But not expecting a great game by any means for Giants Cowboys.
17 is a lot. That 17 points is so much in an NFL game. I don't really remember. I think the only other time we've had a line like that this year was when the Niners were hot and they were playing the Cardinals. And even then, I think it was like 16 to 16 and a half. So 17 is just, it's a lot. Danny DeVito, he's the starter for the rest of the year. I think that
Danny,
he's, I,
Danny DeVito.
I think,
I don't think Danny DeVito could see over the center if it was Danny DeVito. That's funny.
so he's, so he's going to be there starting, the rest of the year. And I think he's going to get better. I think that he needs more reps. But this is not a good defense to be going against right now. Obviously, we know what the Cowboys can do on the defensive side of the ball as far as takeaways go. But either way, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this one. This is a game you put $1,000 on the money line for the Cowboys, you're going to win $10. Like it's that big of a favorite, especially with the boys at home coming off of a loss and they're playing a bad team. They might win by 30 points. So this 17 to me, I mean, I'm probably going to take the 17, to be honest with you. I'm probably going to go Cowboys minus 17, which sounds so crazy to say out loud. But, if the Giants score a touchdown in this game, it might be because of Barkley, and that it's probably going to be a big play, like just a missed tackle by somebody and or a blown defensive assignment, and it might be the only touchdown they get all game. I don't see a whole lot of yards coming from the Giants. Maybe if this line comes down just a bit, maybe, but there's really nothing I like about the Giants here. 93% of the bets on the money line for the Cowboys and then 76% spread on the boys. I really hope whoever the 7% is of people who put bets on the Giants money line didn't put a whole lot of money on that, because that's an absurd bet. Imagine seeing this and being like, yeah, I'm going to put Giants money line on this one. I think they're going to win straight up. So either way,
You got to have bags to do that.
yeah, nothing really to talk about other than that in this one. If you're worried, especially if I want to say maybe take the over. Um, if you're worried about the Giants offense, which is very, very, that's fair. I think what's the total points on this one? 38.5. Like,
Yeah.
the Cowboys might put up 30 themselves. Or they probably will put up 30 themselves. They might even put up 40,
Right.
but
But what if they could. I could see like putting them 30, but it's like how many is the Giants going to get, at the same
exactly.
time.
That's
So
that's why it's tough. And
are they
then
going to take their foot off the pedal too once they get to a certain point? And then what do you like? This is tough. It's tough to predict from gambling perspective. A game like this.
yeah, I mean it's really, I'm not even really going to talk much more about it. It's just like, yeah, I mean, depending on what the odds are, maybe bet the Giants to score less than a touchdown. You know what I mean? Maybe because
Less than 10.
less than 10, yeah, something like that. I just don't see. I don't see the Giants doing much of anything in this one. I think this is going to be a very boring game to watch. Um, so unfortunately, that's it. That's all I got on this one. Go Cowboys!
Yeah. All right. Let's get on to Washington Commanders, 4-5, coming off that win in New England last week against the 5-3 Seattle Seahawks, playing at home after getting routed by Baltimore. I'm seeing 6. Seattle's favored by. I looked at this game earlier. I didn't feel a strong way either way. If I had to bet anything with this game, it might be the over. What's the over sitting at?
For this one,
Over under?
right now, it's sitting at 44.5.
44.5. It might be
Mm-hmm.
that. It might be a tease on that. I'll have to, figure that out. But I said what I said last episode about the Seahawks and realizing, understanding who Geno Smith is. Like, let's not forget. We got to establish that run game. Kenneth Walker's really good. We got to establish that run game. We got to get the play action going. I think JSN, Smith and Jigma,
Mm-hmm.
has been featured a lot more these last couple of weeks in that offense, and that's only going to help them going forward with, you got him, you got Lockett, and then you got DK. So if they can just find the time to protect Geno, and by doing that, you need to establish the run game. Establish the run game, take pressure off those O linemen, let them, ground and pound, run block for you, and then you're not holding them responsible to pass pro every single play, and becoming one dimensional, because you're not a one dimensional team.
No.
You gotta run the ball. You gotta mix in the pass. Geno Smith is what he is, but you got weapons. So set him up to use those weapons, and you're only going to be able to do that by giving him the time to do so.
Yeah.
From a Commander's perspective, I thought they showed up after making those moves that they did last week at the deadline. They showed up. They played tough. New England. Sam Howell threw a bad pick before halftime in that game that took away from what they could have done. But in the end, he got it done for him. Threw an absolute dime to Dotson late in that game, tie it up. And then the defense held up. Their defense has not been great by any means, and they were playing a Patriots offense that's been pretty bad last week. They've not held up, but like I said, if anything, it may be the over for me.
Yeah, this is a real fishy line. It's been sitting at 6, like the whole week. Seattle being the favorites at -6, like it's just a real fishy line, and everything that I've been seeing, like not a lot of people are comfortable on this one. It's like not a lot of people are real comfortable betting this game. Washington's run defense is bad. Seattle should really just come out and try to run it right down their throat with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. Like, just run the ball and then run play action off of that. You'll score 30. Like, Washington's run defense has been that bad, especially obviously now another week removed of no Chase Young, no Montez Sweat. Um, I mean, this game, right? It feels like this should be higher. I don't know if it's an overreaction to Seattle's blowout loss where they flopped last week against Baltimore, and that's why this line is at 6. But I feel like this line should be at like 7.5 to 8, for whatever reason, it's just sitting there at 6, and it has been all week. Um, yeah, Seattle's just a much better team all around, almost at every facet. Seattle's just a better team. I think, like I mentioned, the public's just overreacting to that loss against the Ravens for them last week. Um, the Ravens have made a lot of good teams look bad this year, like the Lions, for example, which we're forgetting about, right? So, Commanders, they got their win last week against a team that can't execute with the Patriots. Uh, a stat on this one: teams that have lost by 20 the previous week, going against teams that didn't lose by 20 the previous week, they're a little over 60% against the spread, right? So that kind of bodes well here for the Seahawks. Um, and then actually coming into this week, there's 3 teams in that scenario, right? 3 teams that lost by 20 plus points last week, and then going into this week, they're facing teams that didn't lose by that much. Those teams are Seattle, which I like here at -6, Arizona, which I said I kind of like at +2, and then the Giants. Not much to be said there, right? So kind of 2 out of 3, right? Over 60% against the spread. I feel like 2 out of those 3 teams are going to cover, and one of those are not the Giants. I feel like Seattle and Arizona, you know, have a good shot to do that this week. This could be a late trap. All the money and the tickets are on Seattle, and the line's still at 6. Like, yeah, it's just fishy to me. It really is. It really is. I don't know. I like Seattle at -6, but something seems weird here.
Yeah, you may have talked me into it. In addition, I completely forgot Leonard Williams on that D line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he can make his presence known in this game. We've seen Commanders struggle to protect Howell. Last couple weeks, it's been better, but I mean, before that, it was rough. They were leading the league in most sacks given up. Um,
Yep.
and Seattle's D line isn't great, but they've generated some pressure this year, and now you add Leonard Williams to that. You might have talked me into Seattle -6 and the fact that maybe the line should have been greater. I may still take the over in this as well. Well, remains to be seen on that one.
Yeah.
Moving on to cap off this Week 10 NFL preview. Again, we appreciate y'all for listening. We got the Jets 4-4 in prime time again against the 4-5 Vegas Raiders at home Sunday night on NBC. Oh man, this isn't one of those Sunday night games that you're getting real excited for either. Seems like I mean, last week we had the Bills Bengals, but for the most part we haven't, like, these primetime games we haven't been getting real excited about, and this is the last game because we already addressed the Monday night game Broncos Bills, which is another one where we're like, I mean, yeah, the Bills could underperform, but they're a much better team than Denver, so we're not like too excited about that one really.
Yeah.
This Jets Raiders matchup, Aiden O'Connell, Aiden O'Connell going against that Jets defense, that could be brutal for him. That could be a brutal watch. I could see a lot of Devontae Adams getting frustrated on Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they looked like they had some juice to them last week, but it was against the Giants. You got Antonio Pierce in there. I don't expect that same juice. Like, they're going to be pumped to be playing on Sunday Night Football, of course, but I don't expect the same juice from that Raiders offense. The Raiders.
Raiders.
That Jets defense has remained to be very tough, with all the pressure that's put on them this year and the last couple of years with Zach Wilson and that offense. They just continue to do it. And then the Jets offense, I mean, it is what it is. And I don't know. Nothing too exciting about this matchup. I see Vegas is favored by 1 right now. I don't feel any strong particular way either way. Um, what say you?
I mean, kind of relatable to the Packers Steelers game, right? Do we trust O'Connell to get it done against this Jets defense? I don't. I don't. I think they're gonna make his like the Jets. The Jets like made Justin Herbert look human like last week. He didn't have a good game by any means at all. Their offense did not have a good, and that was like one of those stats I was thinking of that I couldn't think of at the time. It had something to do with holding Herbert to like under X amount of yardage, X amount of first downs, all that shit.
Yeah, like 130 yards, I believe.
Yeah, like they're going to make Aiden O'Connell's not like life a living hell. Fully expect that O'Connell might have 2 or 3 turnovers in this game. Um, I kind of want to wait to see if the Jets become dogs here. I think they're sitting at -1. Uh,
No, no, the Jets are our dogs.
they are. Oh, I mean, yeah, because I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on the book. I think DraftKings, last I checked, had them at -1, but if they're dogs, I mean,
I'm seeing Vegas -1, but
I'd take them right away. I would. I mean, I might hop off the once we hop off the show. I'm probably if if the Jets are at +1, I'm taking them right away. Putting the multiple units on that. That might be a juicy bet for me because I really don't like O'Connell against that Jets defense, and I think that um, the Raiders were high last week, first game under Pierce. I don't know that they keep that going into this week, but not much more to talk about other than that. And then also the stat that I brought up, teams losing by 20 plus points going against a team that didn't. This also falls into that category as well, actually. So over 60% against the spread. I like the Jets here.
yeah, you might have talked me into it too. Well, I talked myself into it a little bit, and then
Yeah.
yeah,
Icing on the cake.
just Jets. Yeah, might be the Jets, Jets, putting out on them again, and hopefully it pays off for us this time.
Yep.
Well, that is it for our Week 10 NFL preview. We appreciate y'all for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Once again, I want to give a shout out to Todd and Justin for joining us for Questions for the Fan. We want to continue to do this segment. We're going to kick it off again next week. I already got somebody lined up for next week. Hoping to get somebody else in there as well. And yeah, we'll be back next week with our Week 10 NFL recap. All right. See you then. Goodbye.